and we should be pretty good to go. So hi, everybody. Welcome to How to Be a Great Mentor, mentorship here at Ignite Grande. I'm Brad Addig. I'm with Foundry Collective. So Foundry Collective is a nonprofit that works to help small and rural communities create centers for innovation, Main Street hubs, similar to what you have here with Ignite Grande. We're here partially because of a grant, a generous grant from the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, with our partners, Rural Development Initiatives and Kelly Nonprofit Consulting, and then also NEO, EDD, and Ignite. So I like this quote. Historically, entrepreneurship has been the lifeblood of the rural economy. So part of entrepreneurship, particularly for early stage entrepreneurs, is getting access to great mentors that can help them through their challenging times as well as their good times. Most startups go through probably a lot more challenging times than they do great times. And Foundry Collective's theory of change is that the creation of these vibrant, sustainable innovation hubs will help support small business and entrepreneurs to launch and grow innovative businesses. And they will contribute to accelerated growth and long-term success. Studies prove that small businesses and startups that get access to the type of technical services and support they need have a 30% greater chance of success over their first 5 years. So what is mentorship? Well, interestingly enough, mentorship comes from 700 BC, Homer's epic book, Odyssey, when Ulysses leaves his son behind to be trained, educated, and developed with someone named Mentor. So now you know. The interesting thing about this is note that I've underlined development of his identity. So this is more than simply mentoring people to teach them what we would call technical skills or educate them on how things work, but it's a lot about how to deal with other people, how to create skill sets like political savvy, understanding how to communicate with people that are different than you. So mentorship is informal. So it's informal communication. What's interesting about this, it's between someone who is perceived to have more knowledge and someone that's perceived to have less knowledge. And why that is important is that a lot of people don't necessarily identify themselves as having the skills necessary to be a mentor. For instance, you might have run a startup for a year and you're like, I'm not ready to mentor anybody because I still need mentoring. But in fact, for someone who's just launching a new business, you could have quite a bit of knowledge and expertise to hand along. You are going to perceive, if you're a year into your startup, you're going to be perceived as having more knowledge and the ability to mentor than someone who hasn't even launched their business. So keep in mind, the word perceived is very important in this. It's also an informal process. Mentorship is not a formal process. You don't want to set up and say, this is our 12-week mentoring program, okay? So it's an informal process. And what's interesting about this is that it's knowledge, okay? Technical skills. It's also social capital. And it's also the psychosocial support perceived by the recipient, by the mentee, as being relevant to their work, or their career, or their professional development. So what does a mentor offer? Knowledge. Can someone give me an example of knowledge that you might, as a mentor, transfer to a mentee? Where to register a business. Excellent. Social capital. Can anybody give me an example of what social capital might be? Brian? Social capital could be explaining to someone how they might work with a politician, or how they might work with someone on their team that's a little more difficult, or how they might navigate some interpersonal challenges or issues. It could also be connecting them with other people, okay? And then this psychosocial support, what is that? Anybody want to, what was that? Could be connecting people doing the same thing. I like to think about it as lifting you up when you're feeling down, okay? When helping give you encouragement, helping make you feel like you're going in the right direction, helping with those things that we all struggle with sometimes, and being able to help you feel more confident or something. So keep in mind that a mentor does several things. A mentor might connect you to a workshop, or they might teach you how to log on to QuickBooks, but they might probably also are going to give you some softer skills. And they're also going to be the one there because if any of you have done a startup, you know that there are times when you're ready to throw in the towel. And that's when a mentor offers that psychosocial support and says, push through this, okay? You've got this. You have it figured out. Don't give up. So one more thing to remember about this, it's not about the mentor, okay? There are a lot of people that step to the plate and say, I want to be a mentor, and it suddenly becomes all about them. Right? It's not at all about the mentor. So none of what we're going to talk about tonight is going to say, gee, you're a great mentor. We're so glad that you're mentoring, and this is making you a better person. Okay, the value in this relationship is to satisfy the mentee. The reason we mentor is to help the mentee. So mentoring an entrepreneur. Now, there are other kinds of mentoring. You could be mentoring an athlete. You could be mentoring some other thing. But mentoring an entrepreneur is unique in itself because entrepreneurs have somewhat unique challenges, and they probably have many more ups and downs than a lot of other people in a lot of other areas. So one of the things is mentoring someone builds skills, okay? And that's career functions. That's teaching them how to do something. But it's also that political and social skills required to succeed. How do you talk to a banker? Not how do you fill out a loan application, but how do you talk to your banker? How do you sell your project? How do you work with someone? How do you convince someone to join your team when you can't pay them very much? So that's the career function part of this. And the other side of this, again, is these psychological functions. It's competence, clarity of identity, effectiveness in the professional role. You're doing a great job. I like how you addressed that challenge. That's the other side. So we're going to, as a good mentor, you're teaching people how to do things, but even more importantly, you're helping keep their confidence up. So what do you look for in a good mentor-mentee relationship? Well, a good mentoring relationship is about being available. If you're going to mentor someone, you need to be able to have the time to be available, and you need to be able to have the time available when they need you. So remember, it's not about you, okay? It's about the mentee. Secondly, there needs to be mutual trust and liking, okay? You can't have a mentor-mentee relationship unless there's trust on both parts. Actually, mutual trust and liking is one of the key determinants on whether the relationship will be successful or not. So what is mutual trust? Can someone give me an idea of how you might identify if you have mutual trust?
If I feel comfortable talking to you and I don't feel like you're going to go behind my back.
Perfectly. I know what I talk to you about is in confidence. We're having this kind of a sharing where I know if I'm in a room having a meltdown, it stays in the room, okay? The other one is showing up on time. The other one is being there when you need to be there. It's doing what you say you're going to do. But I think a lot of this is the ability to feel comfortable with the person and know that when your conversations with them are between the two of you. Liking, yeah, you probably need to like the person. Probably don't have to love them, but you probably need to like them. Commitment to a moral contract. Anybody want to take a stab on what I mean by moral contract? So for the mentee, it means that you, as the mentor, are in fact genuinely vested in me. My moral contract is I'm going to work with you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to be there for you through thick or thin. From the mentor relationship, and remember this is a two-way street, the moral contract is if I'm going to work with you and I'm going to take my time to help you get better, you're going to continue to work at it. You're going to do the things you say you're going to do. You're going to come through and you're going to stay engaged with me. Okay, you may not agree with me as a mentor. You may not like what I have to say, but you're going to be engaged with me. Moral contracts are very critical. To create a good mentor-mentee fit, both parties need to fully buy into the relationship. Has anyone here ever mentored anybody when you realize that the person you're mentoring really isn't bought into this? They think they need a mentor. Someone told them to get a mentor. They now have you as the mentor, and they're kind of like nodding their head like the little dog in the back of the window, but they haven't bought into that relationship. That's a sign. You need to have somewhat of a professional link, okay? So I don't have a good definition for what a strong professional link is, other than remember that you as a mentor have to be perceived as having more experience, more knowledge, more skills, and the person, the mentee, has to be perceived as being able to benefit and drive their business forward from the skills that you have. So that strong professional link could be, I doubt you'd want to tell someone, I've never mentored anybody before. Okay, but you might, because you might want to have that mutual trust, and you might want to admit and say, I've never done this before, but I'm the president of a bank. We'll see where that leads you. You have to get along at the interpersonal level. It has a lot to do with liking. You're going to spend time together. You probably need to make sure that you can have some interpersonal dialogue that doesn't go off the rails. How do you sustain a good fit? Well, the relationship has a better chance when agreeableness is similar for both parties, okay? So agreeableness means that in most cases, around most of culture mores and all of those other things, you tend to agree more than you would disagree about things. We know we're in a very polarized world. We know there's a lot of politics, and we know there's a lot of things going on. It's possible that if you have outside interests that are very diverse, that those will come into this mentor-mentee relationship and sour it. So you need to be doing checks to make sure that you are both agreeable. Now, that doesn't mean that everything you tell me I'm going to agree with and do, but what it does mean is I agree to listen, and I agree to listen with an open mind, and that you agree as a mentor to listen to what I have to say with an open mind instead of saying, no, that's kind of crazy, okay? The mentor has to have a low level of conscientiousness, which I never can pronounce that word quite right. What does that mean? Okay, so being conscientious means that you're diligent, you work at something, you're paying attention, you're doing your best, right? Why would a mentor need a low level of that? Any idea? So you're not just mental, and another part about it is the fact that I need to challenge the mentee. I need to be throwing things out there that in fact might be a little bit out of the ordinary. Okay, we're trying to look for results and ways to deal with things differently. So I should be a little bit less diligent on like vetting what I'm trying to tell you as a mentee. Okay, I'm not going to go study a lot of reports so that I can tell you this is exactly the right way to do it because I've studied 22 reports. On the flip side, the mentee should have a high level. And the mentee should be willing to take a look at what you're doing as a mentor and what you're trying to communicate and actually take that in, due diligence, give it a try. They should be committed to this relationship in a slightly different way. Because I'm going to throw things out as a mentor to you that you might, if you're not conscientious, you might just dismiss it offhand as that's a crazy idea, as opposed to being, okay, I'll give that a shot. I'll give that a try. I will think about that. So how do you ensure there's a successful mentor-mentee fit? The relationship has a better chance of success when the mutual liking is high. Mentors and mentees work better together and have higher levels of success if you like who you're getting information from. Is that always the case? Does that mean that if you have a little bit of a tenuous mentor-mentee relationship that it might not work? No, it could work. And it could work particularly in specific areas where you just have so much experience that you sometimes have to be almost directive to your mentee. That might hurt that mutual liking, but mutual liking. Trust is apparent and also mutual. You have to trust the mentee to listen, to act, to consider. They don't always have to do it, but you need to be able to trust them so that when what's going to happen if you keep working with a mentee and they don't do anything, or they don't try anything, or they don't even agree with you 90% of the time, you're going to lose interest. And when you lose interest, you're not going to be available. And when you're not available, the wheels fall off the relationship. Upfront guidelines are created and upheld. I cannot stress enough to say, look, here's the guidelines that we need to work on, and they need to be mutual, okay? If we're going to be in a mentor-mentee relationship, we should agree that we're going to connect frequently. We're going to try to sit down once a month. We're going to keep notes. We're going to follow back up at our next meeting about what got done and what didn't get done. We're going to set up some guidelines that will help us to be able to refer back to those. So when things are going a little askew, I can say, remember when we sat down, you promised me that you would have an open mind. Okay? It's right here because we wrote it down because we took notes from our first meeting. All right? So you can go back to those upfront guidelines and pull them back out. If things go a little rocky, and say, hey, this is what we agreed to. Why aren't we doing it? I would want the mentee to do the same thing with the mentor. If I was a mentee and I was reaching out to my mentor, I'd reached out 2 or 3 times and they hadn't gotten back to me, I would be saying, hey, you promised to return my calls. You haven't, okay? That's a problem. That's causing this relationship not to work well. So what makes a good mentor? Because that's what you're here for. One, remember, it's not about you. First and foremost, it is not about you, okay? Availability is important. If you're going to mentor someone, you have to be available for them, particularly if you're mentoring an entrepreneur. Why is it so important to be available if you're mentoring an entrepreneur, particularly an inexperienced entrepreneur? Anybody?
Things happen.
Things happen. And typically, early on in startups, when things happen, they need answers really quickly. You're right, absolutely. So you have to be available for them to reach out to you because this is informal. So they may call you at 11 o'clock at night and say, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This just popped up. You have to make yourself available for those, okay? You have to have expertise. I want you to notice there's an asterisk by expertise. And we're going to talk about that a little bit different, a little bit later. But you do have to have expertise. You have to have experience, but there's an asterisk by experience. You have to have experience of some form, shape, or something. Now, a lot of people that get asked to be mentors or don't think they can be mentors actually do have expertise and experience, but they're still at some stage in their growth cycle where they don't think that they can bring value to the table for someone that's less experienced than them. And the fact of the matter is, if you started a startup, you started a business, and you've managed to get through it for the first year, you have an incredible amount of experience and you have an incredible amount of expertise. It's a good time to start sharing it. Mentors can get a lot out of mentoring someone, particularly if an entrepreneur is mentoring another entrepreneur. One, because a lot of times the cycles are the same. You're just a little bit higher up on the ladder. So it's always good as a refresher. Okay. And you can learn sometimes from your mentee. You have to have an ability to really understand. You have to be able to understand what they're going through, and you have to understand the questions that they're asking you. And if you don't understand the question, you have to be able to be actively listening and repeat it back to them and say, I don't understand this. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? And you have to have empathy. You have to know that, particularly when mentoring an entrepreneur, small business owner, they are what? They are the C of the company, and that means they're the CEO, they are the COO, they are the CFO. They wear a lot of hats and they have a lot of things going on. So you have to be empathetic that they may not be able to always try things or do things as you necessarily agree on because they've got, 10 sticks with 20 twirling plates on them going around. So let's talk a little bit about some mentoring skills. Accompanying. At what stage would we want to do accompanying? What is accompanying? Accompanying is going along with someone, okay? It's side by side. It's taking part in the learning process. It's someone that might come to you and say, I need some help mentoring on this I'm mentoring you on something, and suddenly maybe the technology goes in a turn where neither of you have ever been there before. So you're going to accompany them on that journey and learn with them or guide them. And you may not know anything about the software platform, or you may not know anything about where you're going, but you can, because of the fact you have some experience, share with them what you've learned along the way when you've had similar experiences where you've had to learn something new. Technique number 2, sewing. So what is sewing? Not sewing, no sewing with yarn. Planting seeds, okay. What this also is sometimes you have to sow things before the mentee is ready for them, okay? Sometimes you have to put things in their mind so that when it does in fact pop up, they are somewhat prepared for that. Can you give me an example of something, Brian, that you might have to sow when you're mentoring for someone that's going to pop up somewhere down the road? You know it is.
Just give them ideas of things that might happen in the future so they're better prepared when it does happen. They don't get overwhelmed or stressed out.
Absolutely. Give them an idea what might possibly happen in the future. I will tell you one that's my favorite. How do you hire your first employee? Okay? Because in most cases, you realize you need your first employee about way too late. Okay? You're already behind the 8 ball. You're already in this position where you're working 26 hours a day, and suddenly you realize that you need help, and it's almost too late. So if you can prepare someone in advance for some of the steps they may go through and what they should be looking for as red flags, then they can be better prepared when that moment comes, because it will be an urgent moment in most cases, okay? And you may have had them prepared. My favorite thing is you don't hire your first employee, you go to an agency and you get your first employee. But that's just mine. Another one, catalyzing. Learning can hit a spot where something just has to happen, okay? That's where sometimes as a mentor, you do have to take the bull by the horns. You have to force change, okay? It's like do or die. You either got to get on QuickBooks, or you either have to hire someone, or you either have to invest in this piece of machinery, or you either have to do this, or your business is going to stop, stagnate, stall, or die. Okay, so that's the catalyzing part of a mentorship role. Sometimes you have to be directive, okay? Remember, we're trying to be back and forth. We're trying to have this mutual trust, but at some points in a mentorship role, you will have to look at someone and say, you got to do this. There's no more talking about it. You have to do it, okay? You got to reorder, you got to reprioritize, you got to change your values. A tough one sometimes is when someone has a business wrapped around a social cause, and it's apparent for the next 6 months or the next 9 months or a year that that business is not going to continue if they continue to embrace all of that. And you may have to kind of convince them and push them and say, in the short run, you might need to give up donating 100% of your profits to somewhere. You start to need to retain your profits in order to grow this, and then you can maybe scale to a level where, in fact, you can go back to that initial. So it sometimes is pushing people beyond some emotional barriers or boundaries where they are, but you got to catalyze them. Another technique is showing, okay? That's, storytelling. This is how I've done it in the past. This is what I've done when faced with similar circumstances. Show by your own behavior, okay? Another really important technique is a mentor, is being able to be kind of a role model in a way and say, been there, done that. Here's how I handled it. Not telling you how to handle it, but this is what I did, and give that some thought. And then finally, harvesting. What's harvesting?
Bringing in the crop.
Bringing in the crop, yeah. Picking the ripe fruit, okay? What was learned, okay? Harvesting is really important as a mentor-mentee, particularly when times get a little heated, times get a little tough. Maybe you just catalyzed them a little bit, okay? And then you showed them, and now you want to sit down and say, hey, what did we learn from that, okay? How useful was it? Did we pick up on anything? Because that's a way to go back and realize that, in fact, whatever that hump was you just got over, was worth it. And in many cases, keep in mind that, you know, this is a freight train going full speed down a hill, okay? You, in many cases, don't stop and say, wow, we got through that. What did we learn? You just say, oh, challenge ahead. Oh, another challenge ahead. Oop, another challenge ahead. So make sure you take time to harvest the learning lessons that you're helping your mentee discover. And that's also important. Our role isn't to tell them what to do. Our role is to help them discover and help them understand and help them find their own path with some guidance. Kind of like those bumper rails on a bowling lanes that they put up now. So I have 3 rules when I'm mentoring that are very important to me. You probably all will come up with your own rules. One is, who am I to judge? Okay. As a mentor, my role is not to judge the business model, the business idea, the concept, or anything else. The person I'm mentoring is the expert in that realm. Okay. This came from the Pope. All right. And my favorite saying is that at its peak, the pet rock sold $100,000 a day. So who am I to judge? Okay. Your idea might be completely, to me, off the wall. I may not understand your customer. I may not understand some of the things you're trying to do. I may not understand the technology. That's okay. I don't have to be an expert in everything, but I shouldn't be judging your idea. And I'll tell you where this comes out a lot. If you've ever seen people pitch or talk about their startup ideas early to a group of people, and everybody starts saying, you should do this, or you could do that, or you could do some of those things, or I don't think anybody from Portland's ever going to drive to La Grande, or, you know, they're already judging what you're doing. And as a mentor, stay away from that. The second one is prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Okay. We go through that again. Prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. That again goes back to that group of people that say, wow, okay, well, you know, you could reach out to this group of people with that and change this and do that and everything else before anybody really understands the business or understands what's trying to happen. So be very careful as a mentor that you listen more, okay, and talk less. There's a reason we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Okay, listen a lot, particularly at the beginning, so you understand the challenges that the person you're mentoring is in fact facing. And they may not know all those challenges early on. And if they don't know all those challenges early on, there's no way they can tell you. So the third one pops in here is I say, do no harm. I've seen instances where mentors will look at someone and say, you got to go to this pitch fest in Portland next week. It's very important. You need to be there. Okay. Not knowing that that person has 52 orders that they need to get packed up and shipped out. And they either end up working 24 hours straight and then trying to drive overnight to Portland to pitch in this event, which in reality wasn't really that important to the business or anything else. So do no harm. Understand that people look up to mentors. They are looking at what we're suggesting that they do. And sometimes if we can push them in places where it's not healthy for the mentees to go. So who am I to judge? Prescription for diagnosis is malpractice. Try to do no harm. So what makes a good mentee? So you're all experienced mentors now, and you're looking for your first mentee, okay? One, I would recommend that a mentee seek you out, okay? That's not always going to be the case, but in a lot of cases, someone's going to come to you and ask for help. They're going to say, can you mentor me? I need a mentor. Or they're going to say, someone told me I should get a mentor. You look competent. Can you mentor me? So be a little careful of those. But what you're looking for in a mentee is one, that they're motivated to succeed. You want people that say, I want to build this business. There are a number of entrepreneurs out there that like to start businesses because they just enjoy that start portion, okay? And at some point, they lose interest in it. And if they're not interested in building a viable enterprise, why would you donate your time? Why would you give up your time and effort? Remember, you got to be accessible. You got to be a good listener. You got to be empathetic. You got to do all of these things. Why would you give up your time for a mentee that isn't truly seriously interested in launching this as an enterprise? Now, there could be changes. You could be doing youth entrepreneurs where, in fact, what they're doing is they're learning entrepreneurship. They're serious about learning entrepreneurship, so I would still mentor them, but they're not necessarily serious about launching that business. They may do 2, 3, 4, but they're learning entrepreneurship. that's a different instance. They're still motivated to succeed, but their definition of success might be different than what we might think it would be. Probably want to work with someone that has a positive attitude. Okay, it's pretty hard when you're mentoring to suggest something and the person say, that'll never work. Well, maybe you try it this way. That'll never work. Maybe you try it this way. Well, you know, my cousin Al tried it that way and it didn't work. Well, maybe you try this. No, we did that 2 years ago. It didn't work. You need someone that's positive in their attitude and someone that's willing to listen to what you have to say. If they are going to tell you it isn't going to work, my favorite line is, what empirical evidence do you have to lead you to that conclusion? Because most of the time, what leads you to that conclusion is some kind of a bias. Okay, you're biased against this or you're biased against that. And biases hurt everybody, but it can hurt a startup worse than anything. So if you're biased against something without trying it, you put yourself in a hole automatically. Now, you can test it and it doesn't work, and you can say, I told you so, but you should have empirical evidence to say we tried that, we tested it, and it didn't work. They should be respectful. They should understand that regardless of the suggestions that you're making, that they take them with an open mind, and that they're respectful of your time, and that they're respectful of what you're suggesting and how you're working with them. If they're not, it's a problem. They also need to be willing to learn, okay? I have mentored people, probably all of you have mentored people that just don't want to listen to you sometimes, okay? They're just closed off to a certain path of ideas or something, and it kind of goes back to that motivated, succeed, and positive attitude. These all kind of wrap in together, but I think you can break them out a little bit. And these might be things, remember when I talked about upfront, setting upfront expectations? I would go through this list with a mentee and say, look, what I expect from you if I'm going to mentor you is you remain, you're serious about this. You're going to stay positive. Now, I know there's going to be down times. This is a lot of work. Doing a startup, running a small business, expanding my business, whatever it may be, is a lot of hard work. There are going to be ups and downs, and just be open-minded. Be honest, okay? They have to be able to tell you what's going on in reality. So when they come in with a really glum face, you're like, what's the matter? They have to be able to tell you that I'm overdrawn at the bank. I've hit my credit line on my credit card. My partner is no longer supporting me. I just did my fifth prototype and it blew up and it burned the garage down. You need someone that's going to actually tell you, because you can't help them if you don't have all the information, you don't have the honesty in place. They need to be an effective communicator. They have to be able to communicate to you one way or another what's in fact going on, okay? A lot of times, particularly with inexperienced entrepreneurs and small business people, they have this vision on the mount of what this thing is going to be. And as they start to describe to you their business and everything that's going on, it's like that 10-year vision, okay? And they'll go on, and eventually I'm going to save the world. I'm going to make this place someplace. I just had someone come in and say, I'm going to make the world a better place by eliminating currency. Like, well, what's your minimally viable product and how are you going to get there? And we could never get back to that. And I knew that I wasn't going to be the right mentor for that person because I couldn't get down to a level where I could actually understand where they needed help. So what makes a mentorship successful? Well, when the mentee is satisfied, okay? That's what makes it successful. Now, that doesn't mean if the mentee is not satisfied that you failed, but it means that that relationship didn't accomplish what it needed to accomplish. So if you have a motivated mentee who's committed to success and they're working hard and they're listening and they're open-minded, they're trying things, and they're not satisfied, then it didn't work. And how would we define satisfaction for a mentee? A mentee finds satisfaction if the guidance and the help they're getting helps them reach where their objectives are, helps them move their business forward, or helps them get a step forward, okay? So if what you're doing isn't helping them progress their idea or their business or whatever it is that they're working on, a specific part of that, then they're probably not going to be satisfied. They may still like you. They may be incredibly appreciative. They may say, thank you so much. That was great. But in the back of their mind, they're going to be, I'm still in the same place I was 3 months ago. So keep in mind, again, it's not about you. It's about the mentee. And it's about checking in and saying, are we moving forward? Are we making progress? Are we, in fact, hitting goals, objectives, milestones? Where are we? Am I helping you? I mean, that's probably the biggest question is what we're doing helping you? Am I helping you be a better mentor right now? Am I helping you to be a better mentee? Am I helping you make your business stronger? Are we just meeting to meet? So here's a myth. A lot of people say, let's start a mentor-mentee relationship, Lisa. Let's meet every Tuesday at noon. Okay? Because we think that mentors and mentees should meet on a regular schedule. Frequency and duration of meetings have absolutely no impact on mentee satisfaction. So there is no ideal frequency, okay? Studies show that satisfaction was obtained as often as twice a month and as rarely as once every 2 months. Anyone care to venture a guess why regular meetings don't necessarily lead to better mentorship?
Regular.
Could add extra stress. It could be just one more thing on my calendar.
They're not scheduled when I need the help.
They're not scheduled when I need the help.
Something.
Yeah. When you're starting or launching a business or scaling a business, you kind of need the help when you need it. It's like, I can't really wait 2 weeks to talk to my mentor about this challenge with this guy that's in planning, okay? And I need some help with social skills because I'm having a difficult time getting my septic approved or whatever it may be. So the meetings, I think you should have meetings down and agree that we're going to try to meet, but I'll bless you. But I also think that you have to be real flexible as a mentor these days and be available when the mentee needs you. So there's nothing here that says having regular scheduled meetings is required or that it's necessarily beneficial, okay? Now, let's say you have a mentee who has trouble making deadlines, okay? And they need to be mentored on how to adhere to deadlines and how to show up to things on time. And those are two of the soft skills that they're going to need to be taught right away. You may, for a period of time, move them into that, be directive, right? And that may be that one stage of mentorship where you have to be a little more directive to try to teach them some technical skills, show up, be present, okay? But that doesn't mean that your whole relationship needs to be based on that. The fact is that if you want to be a good mentor, make the meetings valuable, okay? Make sure that your mentee leaves every meeting with value. So meeting efficiency is very important. We might be able to meet for 15 minutes, okay? And we might, in those 15 minutes, be able to work through a problem that has bottlenecked you or stopped you, and we might be able to get through that. So being efficient. Time is a rare commodity for novice entrepreneurs, okay? They are already, a lot of people starting businesses are doing what? Working another business, right? Working 2 jobs, going home, doing stuff in the garage until 2 o'clock in the morning. So make the meetings valuable and be cognizant, again, of the time and effort. Do no harm, okay? And understand that they're putting, if they're committed to success, they're putting into it everything that they have. They're working long hours. They have no time to waste. Have an agenda and keep notes. I cannot stress enough to say, if we're going to meet, what are we covering? And keep notes about what you covered and the commitments that each of you made to each other. That's how you establish and how you solidify mutual trust. Myths. Mentor must be experienced. Remember, I had that little asterisk by experienced, okay? The mentor's expertise and experience does not affect mentee satisfaction. So I pulled this out of a couple different reports, but the one that I pulled the most out of this was a study done up in Canada, where they did interviews of 169 mentees over a period of time. And this was one that jumped out at them and they were like, I wonder why this is. Okay. So the fact that you're incredibly experienced about something may not make a difference to the mentee. So it doesn't mean that they will be necessarily satisfied with the relationship because you are the expert on blockchain technology. Okay. And sometimes you can have a less skilled, less experienced mentor and be perfectly satisfied with them. The real truth of this is the mentor has to be engaged. Okay. What the mentor does often has more impact on the mentee's satisfaction than who he or she is. So that means a mentor that's available, a mentor that's a good listener, a mentor that can use those 5 techniques we talked about earlier at the right time and the right place, can actually have more of an impact on the mentee. And think about it. There are thousands of places we can get technical knowledge. There's nothing we can't Google and we can't watch on YouTube and we can't figure out if we have the time. Yet, in most cases, what is our experience? Our experience in a lot of cases is teaching someone how to do something that is kind of on that technical side. And in many cases, what your mentee needs are the softer sides. They need that understanding of social capital. They need that understanding of they need lifting up. They need you to say you're doing a great job. You don't have to be the most experienced person on the block to be able to look and say, stick with it, okay? You're so close. You're almost there. That doesn't require the fact that I've spent 20 years and I've got a PhD in physics. That just requires me to be an empathetic person and to realize that you're a little down and you need some uplifting. So that's, I think, a lot of this. So impressive resumes, not necessarily. Remember, if you gain the mentee's trust and you're there when they need you, you'll be a much more effective mentor than the fact of the matter that you happen to have some specific skill set that you think they need. Got to be flexible, okay? This one's interesting. When you start mentoring someone, neither you or the mentee really know what anybody needs, okay? Because the business is at some stage, and in most cases, it's going to change. It's somewhat nebulous in many cases. So you have to be flexible because there's no way I can come in and say, oh, gee, Lisa, you need some help on X, Y, and Z. That's what I'm experienced in. That's what I'm an expert in. So I'm going to give it to you. It just doesn't work, okay? So be flexible. Be understanding that it may take a while in the mentor-mentee process to really be able to understand what, in fact, the person needs. They may need some technical skills, and so you start jumping all over technical skills, but in reality, they may need shoring up. They may need help with dealing with a difficult person. They may need some things that just don't jump out at the front. So this kind of goes back to the prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. We need to look as a mentor a little bit deeper and say, how can we help this person holistically be successful? Okay, because businesses fail, startups fail, okay? The odds are the person you're mentoring is probably going to have some failures, okay? So part of our mentoring ability and part of the things we would want to get out of it is to help to make them more resilient. Even if they are going to fail, maybe they'll be more successful next time. Maybe it's just a bad idea. Maybe there's no market for it. Maybe their value proposition customer fit just isn't right. Doesn't mean we can't mentor them on a lot of other things. So they're going to come to you with unique needs, and each relationship is going to be different. So one person may, quite honestly, have all of their ducks in a row but need technical expertise, and another person may have all their technical expertise in a row and be a basket case when it comes to, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. So some observations that I found interesting. Mentees expect the mentor to understand the situation they are in. So a mentee isn't going to probably work well with you as a mentor if you don't get that they're stressed, or if you don't get that they're feeling pressure, or if you don't get that they have to make this successful. So they expect you to understand what they're feeling. And that's really important. They also expect that you know that achieving results is important to the relationship being successful. If we're meeting twice a month and we're spending a couple hours or even more together, and I don't see that impacting and moving my business forward or helping me get to where I want to go, I'm going to look at that as a failure. So the check-ins, how are we doing? Is this helping? Am I bringing value to the table? What is that value? What did we learn? Remember, going back and checking in and saying, what did we learn from that? Did we learn anything, or did we just spin our wheels? So make sure that we are, in fact, as mentors, focusing in on the results and not just mentoring to mentor and to try to say, be a nicer person next time. This is an interesting one. A lot of mentors introduce mentees to their network, right? Let me connect you. Let me connect you with John and Susan and Bob and all these people. Doesn't increase the mentee's satisfaction at all, okay? Now, that's a weird one because you would think that networking would be important. But if I'm a mentee and I view networking as just some more people who want to hear more about what I'm doing or something, is that helping me, one, achieve my results? Probably not, okay? Is it getting me closer to my goals? Probably not. Now, introducing me to a person that can help me get closer to my goals or can maybe become my next mentor or my second mentor is one thing. But just introducing me to a lot of people probably doesn't help me a lot. In fact, it might actually create noise and side talk and create some issues because now I might have 3 or 4 people telling me what I should be doing, okay? So networking, if you think that you're going to be a good mentor because you've got a big Rolodex, it probably isn't going to make your mentee feel strong.
So one of the first things you, I think, talked about was social capital.
Yes.
So that's when it's more directed to the specific issue that the mentee has.
Yeah. Yeah, social capital.
As opposed to this network of people that I know.
Right, right. So social capital is maybe helping them deal with a difficult person or be more political or be more, maybe they should quit telling people they're stupid because they don't like their idea or something, and you know, working with them to be better in those types of things, as opposed to just saying, hey, I've got 10 people I want you to meet. That's a good point. Couple final observations. Mentors that have been there and done that are usually more effective, okay? Now keep that in mind. That doesn't mean you have to have been successful. Some of the best mentors I know are people who continually fail at launching startups and small businesses. They might have had a couple, they've gotten to certain stages, but they've been down in the trenches, so they've been there and done that, and they could say, wait a minute. Let me tell you a story, okay? Remember we talked about storytelling? Let me tell you a story. My first 5 startups all failed, okay? They all failed. You're on startup number 1. Embrace failure. It's okay. I've had 5 fail, okay? I've been there. I've done that. Let me tell you about a time I did the stupidest thing in the universe, okay? So you're been there, done that doesn't mean you have to be Elon Musk or someone and you've absolutely, created SpaceX or Tesla or solar panels or something. It means that you've got real life experience. And I don't want to say anything bad, but that's why a lot of times like university professors and things aren't necessarily great mentors or great educators, but they may not have really had that real life experience. Everybody can be a mentor. We all have the ability to teach someone something or to help someone find it out themselves or to help someone look at things with a different perspective or from a different angle. And sometimes that's all that needs to happen. And then what your ideal goal is that when I mentor you, you're discovering what it is. I'm simply helping you to look at things through a different lens or a different prism and look at it from a slightly different perspective. And all of a sudden go, oh, I get it now. Maybe I should look at it this way. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. That can help you. So everyone can be a mentor. lots of people will not raise their hands to step into a mentor role because they're not comfortable with what their level of experience is and how it might translate. Remember what I said early on? It's perceived to have more experience and it's perceived to have less experience. Okay, that's a perception. No one's sitting there and doing a checklist and saying, okay, you've got these 22 things, you're a mentor, you've got these 4 things, you need to be mentored. Okay, it's a perception that I can bring value to the table to you, and you can receive value in a transactional process where it's important. What's important is you, not me. And what's important is that you're able to move your project, your business, your startup, your idea forward from our relationship. My favorite one, both the mentor and mentee should be comfortable firing the other person. That's a tough one, okay? Because you've entered into this mutual bond of trust. You've got this moral contract. You've been working through some of the things. You need to be able to say, this is not working, okay? And what's really important is the mentee needs to be able to understand that they can fire the mentor if it's not moving the process forward. That would be something that I would sit down on day one when I'm setting out all of these goals and objectives and what we're trying to do and say, listen, if I'm not helping you, I need you to tell me that I'm not helping you so that I can either help you find someone that can help you or I can extract myself so I'm not taking up your time. I want you to be able to feel comfortable to tell me that I'm not bringing value to this project and helping you move it forward. It may be that the fit's not right. It may be that I don't have the right skill sets, that I'm not developed enough in those. It may be we aren't communicating in the way, maybe something we don't even know that's going on, but you need to be able to tell me that I'm not bringing you value as a mentor. And the flip side is, as a mentor, you're not doing anybody any good if you're mentoring someone and the relationship's not working out, okay? So as a mentor, you have to be able to sometimes do a little tough love and say, you know what, this isn't working. These are the reasons why. Personally, maybe I could suggest a couple people that might be better for you. Maybe you know someone, but this just isn't working and I'm taking up valuable time you could be using for other things. Remember, it's not about me as a mentor. It's about the mentee. It's about helping them achieve what their goals and their objectives are, okay? And it's being a great listener, okay? It's understanding I'm not judging. It's understanding that your idea is your idea. My role is to help support you in your endeavor to make that a reality. And maybe it's to help you understand that that's not going to work, but I don't want to be the one telling you it's not going to work. I want you to discover one day and say, you know what? Thank goodness. We teach a course called Iterate. It's about value proposition and customer fit. And you're kind of in a mentor role with a group of people as you're working through that. And I've had people come up to me after 2 or 3 weeks and say, thank God I went through this because I would have spent a lot of my money. And I've had people after the first week who've come in with like a binder and they're incredibly vested in their project. And somewhere along that first week or two, they're like realizing that their value proposition customer segments don't fit. And instead of continuing through the process, they leave because they just can't accept that they just put 6 months or a year into that work. And there may be things there. So, you never know. They're just not going to give up. They're still out there knocking on doors with that same binder, okay? And in the back of their mind now, there's like, no, I got to be right. I got to be right. So keep in mind that the mentor-mentee relationship sometimes is going to come to an end because it's going to be a point where either they're going to recognize it doesn't work or they're going to leave because they see the writing on the wall of how you're heading and they're not willing to accept it. So wrapping up, I'm open for questions. Who here is mentored? So let's go around the table and each person tell me a positive mentoring story. Lisa.
I don't know that I have one.
Why is that?
I do not believe that I've ever been a mentor or been a mentee in any sort of formal relationship where there's regular meetings or irregular meetings, a contract of any sort of expectations.
Okay.
Just not in my experience.
That's awesome. So are we going to go try any of this stuff, or are we going to just go like,
I don't feel like I have the time to be a good mentor. I'm not
Okay.
available.
okay. Well, I think that's excellent. Okay. You can provide technical service advice and guidance or something, but you may not be available, given your schedule and everything else, someone that can actually mentor an entrepreneur or a startup business through those steps. Now, being a mentor doesn't mean it also has to be long-term. There are times when mentors can come in and out of your path that can help you in certain areas, but they're probably more just kind of here's some advice, here's some guidance, here's some resources, probably more on the technical knowledge side, or here's a shoulder to cry on for a period of time and now go back out and do what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I give a lot of emotional encouragement, support in my work, and a little bit of technical advice and learning, but not that off the job, I guess, relationship building.
Okay.
So do you think it has to be off the job?
I don't know. It seems to me like it would be.
I think it's going to depend on the relationship, okay? I think that a mentee, to have that ultimate level of trust, needs to know that they can reach out to you when they need help, okay? And I don't know if that's necessarily a 9 to 5. On the flip side, maybe you can establish those as some guidelines up front and say, look, I am happy to be able, but I'm not available these times. That's part of that social contract at the beginning. I'm not going to be able to be available nights and weekends. Will that work for you? If that does, I'm happy to be a mentor. I'm probably also not going to be available more than twice a month. Those are some guidelines. If those start to slip and those don't work, then somebody should probably fire someone or reassess why those guidelines were put into place and what has changed or what is different and what can be done. Maybe they need 2 mentors. Okay, maybe there is a technical, or maybe they just need some more technical service, and what you're really doing is spending a couple hours a week trying to teach them how to use, Excel or something, which in reality they should sign up for a course or something. So what mentor experience do you?
So I kind of go in and out of those mentor relationships in providing the technical assistance, but there's one person I've been working with pretty consistently for about a year. I'm actually in the process of handing that person off to Marcus. And we had a situation that was just a happy coincidence where we were both there at the same time, meeting with the person. And I could see where I've brought what I can bring. And now that person has grown to a point where there's some additional assistance that's needed. And Marcus did a really fine job. Especially the one thing that he said that I was so impressed with was, you've already been in this business. You've had it for this many years. You're already a success. So just keep moving forward.
Psychosocial.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that particular moment in time, that's what that person needed was, I can do this. I've just got to keep doing it. So.
That's awesome. And also that's kind of like, it doesn't have to be firing them. I guess you can promote your mentee. I mean, you could go through a promotional stage. It's, technically it's like, okay, you're fired, but in reality, there could be better ways to say it. I tend towards the firing when things aren't working out. But the flip side is when you've been a highly effective mentor, it's kind of like running a nonprofit. Our goal as a nonprofit leader should be to put our nonprofit out of business because we've solved the problem completely 100%. So I would think in the mentor-mentee role, depending on what they came in for and what they were looking for, it's possible that you've got them to the stage as far as you can take them and you are going to do a handoff. And I applaud you for doing a clean handoff and recognizing that as opposed to, kind of being, it's all about me and I got to keep mentoring this person because I got a bear hug around him.
They graduated.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're out for an entrepreneur, you're out of pre-K. How about you?
So I helped one of my employees open up a business doing the exact same thing. And they decided they wanted to go a different route than what I was doing, which then I was able to help them understand the reasons I decided not to go that way and the stresses of why I didn't want to, so that they were able to, she was able to set herself up to win better in going that way with having the list of reasons. These are the reasons I chose not to go that route with my business. These are the downfalls of it, and help her to be able, with her decide to go that way, set herself up to win better. And she's successful with it. And so with even doing it differently than I did.
So you've practiced a lot of showing. I've been here, done that. This is where I was. It's excellent. And these are the 5 key techniques that really you can use. You don't use them all at one time, and you may not use some of them at all with some people, but you were able to share why and why not, which that made them much more informed. And also part of that was probably a little bit of this sewing.
Finally, just
Expect-
because you didn't do something doesn't mean it was wrong. Or
Right. Right.
There's so many different avenues that are correct, and successful.
That's why I never judge.
I had a very short mentoring session last week. A contractor called me up and said, I've spent 3 years building this house and building this property under an agreement that I would be able to buy the land. And now the guy that owns it wants to sell it. It's $350,000. I have no additional credit. I can't give any money because I've already got too many loans out on my equipment and stuff. I need to buy a new truck. Where do you think I can get a loan for $350,000? And I asked him one question. I said, if I give you the $350,000 right now on very good terms, what are you going to be? And I said, you can't do this and survive. You can't take on more debt than you can carry without failing utterly. And he said, well, you're the only person that's told me that.
Okay.
I knew what I needed to do. I just needed to hear it.
So that's a good example. Maybe it's not a mentoring relationship, but it's a learning point. The person might have benefited by having had a mentor along the way to help them understand that, there could have been ways to avoid these problems, perhaps with a more ongoing mentor relationship. But it's a good example of being able to step in with a lot of experience and awareness and knowledge. And I like the fact you ask a question. You let them figure out the answer as opposed to giving them the answer. And that's a very important skill set to have, whether it's a one-off, one quick, mentoring session. I always think of those as like, remember in Peanuts, Lucy had the psychiatrist is in 5 cents. You could ask a question. It's kind of like, okay, we got a mentor booth here. Come ask me a question. But you knew enough about the person, you knew enough about the situation, and you let them find the answer. I like that. How about you, Brian?
Most recently, I was privileged enough to work with some high school kids who are going through the process of trying to figure out how to start a business and move forward. And probably one of the most valuable things I learned is to not give them the answers, show them where to find them. And then, working with Lisa, we had lots of great conversations, and I've seen you mentor a lot of people that have opened successful businesses and are still doing well. But we also had a conversation of where's our responsibility as mentors, not judging. Oh, that business will never work, but that's not why we're here. We're here to give them the tools to figure that out on their own and to make their own conclusions. So those are probably the most valuable lessons I learned in the process.
And I don't think, I found nothing in all of the research I was doing that's saying there was a specific time length for mentoring, okay? And I found nothing that said that people couldn't have more than one mentor based on what their needs were and where they are, or they could pass through multiple mentors and come back around to a mentor. There was nothing around that. I think the points that are critical to me is that mutual trust. I like the fact of setting some understanding and goal up front. I believe that a mentoring relationship is more than a single incident. I believe it's a longer term. It doesn't mean we can't give someone sound guidance and use of all of our mentor skills to help them through one specific problem. I think also that it depends on the person's stage. I know highly successful CEOs that still have mentors that help them through different challenges. They may only talk to that mentor once, twice a year, but that's still the person they go to because why? Because the mutual trust is there, the respect is there, and they know that the interaction is going to help move them towards whatever they need to get done in their goals. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I think what I do think is that when you look at the stage of where someone is, they probably need more stable mentorship in earlier stage than later stage, okay? But that's a generalization. I don't have any empirical evidence to support that. That's just one of my feelings that it's probably hard when someone's starting out to bounce around and be looking for a bunch of different mentors because they're going to get different guidance. But I do like the fact also, Brian, our role as mentors is to help people find their path, their own path, and their right direction. There's nothing more satisfying. I had a young man come in a week ago and we were talking about minimal viable products, and he's looking for ways to create a barter system that works, that can change the way that we transact. And I was like, well, there's a coins thing in town, local currency. Can you solve their problem? Well, I don't want to work at that level. I want to work at the bigger level. And I went through the whole story about Elon Musk. When he wanted to figure out how to build a rocket ship to go to Mars, he bought a bunch of books on rocketry and read them all. Now, he didn't become a rocket scientist, but he put in that hard work on reading all of those technical books before he ever went to the next step and went out and hired the 40 best rocket people in the world. So my mentorship with there was simply, I would advise you to put in the hard work at the ground level, build your minimally viable product, come back to me, here's a book, here's some guidance, let's see where that comes. I don't think I'll see that person again, okay? But who knows? We can end this.
So what would you recommend?